And a good Wednesday morning, Quad Cities. It is July 23rd. I'm meteorologist Andrew Stutzky in the top of the 9 o'clock hour here. Welcome in to Ask Andrew Live, another brand new episode where we talk everything weather. I take your weather related questions and get you a solid answer. And if there's something that I need to expand on a little bit more, I'll even add it to the pile for an upcoming episode of Ask Andrew during Good Morning Quad Cities. Welcome aboard. I hope you are staying cool in this excessive heat and humidity. It's been a little brutal outside. We're going to talk more about that. We're also discussing cloud seeding today and the two questions we had this week. One dealing with why does the size of the moon appear to be bigger this time of year versus the winter? The other question we had, of course, was related to cloud seeding. So I'll be talking about those. If you're new, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. If you're not familiar with how this works, the easiest way to get your question to me is via text message. 309-304-0888. 309-304-0888 is the number you'll want to send your text message to. This home, it lives right here on the A+ app. If you miss an episode, no worries. You can always go back in the A+ app on your smart TV, which you can download and watch for free, by the way, if you haven't already, to see previous episodes of Ask Andrew Live. So we got a jam-packed show today, lots and lots to discuss. Go ahead, if you have a question, put it in the text message, or if you're on Facebook, you can put it in the chat. We'll get to those coming up in just a moment. But let's talk about this heat. Yeah, summertime in the Quad Cities, end of July. No surprise, we're talking temperatures in the 90s, and of course, the heat index, woohoo, is it going to be very hot today? Let's get to first our weather impact alert. Before we get to your questions, we do a little weather chat here, and that's what we're going to start with. So we'll start with that. It continues today, right on through tomorrow evening, and in fact, new just in the last few minutes, we've issued another weather impact alert for later this weekend and early next week for even more heat and humidity. More on that in a second, but this is the one we have in place for right now. We are kind of just reminding you, use your common sense, your built-in thought common sense mechanisms. Limit your time outside. If you have to work outside, God bless our postal carriers, our UPS men and women, our FedEx men and women, everybody else, DHL, the speedy folks, everybody who's outside working today. If you can, maybe leave a little cooler with some ice and some bottled water on your porch if you know you're anticipating a package or mail today. I'm sure your mailmen and mailwomen would appreciate that. Those are the folks that have to really pay attention to what their body is telling them. Folks in construction, our first responders, firefighters, police officers, things like that, really have to be smart about how they're performing their duties today. So we have a heat advisory in place for everyone. This goes until 7 o'clock on Thursday. Feels like temperatures will range between 100 and 110 degrees at times. And there are some smaller hometowns, especially if you're in a town surrounded by a cornfield, and I mean a big cornfield, where you could see that heat index push past 110 degrees at times as we go into the afternoon. So just using caution, staying hydrated, taking breaks in the shade. Don't forget about your pets, by the way. Walks should be limited to very early in the morning, first thing, or in the case of Cooper and I, we have to do our walk really late in the evening. Right around bedtime. So keep that in mind too. We had a couple of showers and thunderstorms we were tracking Illinois side this morning. A couple of those moving through Prophetstown. We had some in Clinton. We also had some into Savannah and Tampico and Kalita and the Milledgeville, Prophetstown, as I said earlier there. But now it's nothing but sunshine and skies are clearing out and temperatures are heating up. Look at this, 83, but it feels like 92 degrees and it is only 9:04. In the morning. We have a lot more sunshine and a lot more heat to go. We're already starting to see the mid 80s work into our southwest. Look at Tipton, for example, 86 at this hour. Look at the feels like temperature in Tipton, almost 100 degrees, 93 in Geneseo, 91 in Clinton, 94 in Macomb. These numbers are climbing and they are climbing quickly. So it's not going to take long to get those temperatures well into the 90s this afternoon. Now, this morning's showers and thunderstorms were caused by this area of low pressure currently moving through parts of southern Wisconsin. That's moving out. Behind it, a lot of sinking air, not much lift going on with this front at the moment. So our skies will remain clear and we'll remain quiet as we head into this afternoon. Let's talk heat, then we'll talk storms, because we do have some storms on the way tomorrow that will kind of give us a break from this heat. Heat first. Here's your feels like temperatures today, low 100s or so. And we're going to get a break from this as we go into tomorrow, especially if you're north of the Quad Cities. That's where we'll start to see some of those cooler readings with some showers and thunderstorms coming in at times. But we're going to go right back into the heat zone, especially once we get to the upcoming weekend. In fact, take a look at this, plotting all the way through next Monday, what the temperatures and the feels like temperatures are going to do. Here we go, again, seeing that step up on Sunday into Monday. In fact, Monday may very well be even worse than what we're getting today, by all indications, looking at the amount of moisture that's coming in here. So Friday and Saturday are the two relatively comfortable days we're going to get, and then we're right back in the oven for Sunday into Monday with all that high heat and all that high humidity. We'll talk about that humidity, by the way, in just a second. If you're wondering how humid it's been, how unusually humid it's been, well, it ranks up there. We'll talk about it again coming up in just a moment. Let's now switch gears to storms and start talking about those. No worries for severe weather today. Tomorrow we have a low risk here. This is a 1 out of 5 for all hometowns. This will be for the afternoon and the evening. And the main threat with those storms is just going to be wind. With all this moisture sitting around, as the rain-cooled air rushes down to the ground, that could bring wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour or so. Not really concerned with the tornado threat tomorrow, not seeing that materialize. Not really concerned about a flash flood threat tomorrow either, because these storms are going to be moving. They will not be building over the same area over and over again. So wind is going to be our primary driver as we go into storms for tomorrow afternoon. How about a first look at the high-resolution future track? We'll put that into motion, timing out the showers and thunderstorms. Again, we're not going to really see anything today, so I'm going to skip over that, and I'm going to go right into our Thursday here. So we're going to kind of play with this on the fly, and let me see if I can back that up. This is where I want to go. So I want to start tomorrow morning right here at about 6:30 in the morning. There is likely going to be a complex of showers and thunderstorms to our northwest that will be decaying as it reaches our region here. One or two of those possible tomorrow morning, nothing severe there. But once that wave moves through and we get a little clearing here for the afternoon, there you see wave number 2 coming in with those scattered thunderstorms once we reach 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. And then we progress this further into the evening. Here we go, 4 or 5 o'clock. Some really good, robust storm development, especially south of Interstate 80. Now, the placement of all this can still change. So it doesn't mean that areas south are going to get hammered with what you're seeing here. But the trend is we're going to see an uptick in the storm coverage and intensity as we go through tomorrow evening. And there you see that wave then working off to the east later Thursday. We'll have another wave coming in on Friday that could potentially give us another round of some scattered thunderstorms. So again, at least with this wave, its wind is the main threat. We're not expecting a ton of rainfall out of this. Storms will be moving, so that's some good news if you're worried about any flooding potential. All right, so how about the rankings? How humid has this summer been so far? Because it feels like it's been oppressively humid, and you are so right. So these are the most humid summers in the Quad Cities from June 1st, which is the start of meteorological summer, all the way through 2 days ago when I pulled this data. It ranks second. 2025 is the second most humid summer on record as of 2 days ago. And look how close we are to the actual top spot in 2010, 65.6 degrees. We're only 0.5 of a degree away from the most humid summer on record in the Quad Cities. That is quite amazing indeed. We'll continue tracking that because summer does not officially come to an end until September 1st, at least for meteorological summers. So we still have time for that number to get even higher. Let's go to the 8-day and talk about that next weather impact alert. Okay, so that's going to be coming in for Sunday into Monday. It's the same story as what's going on right now. I just showed you those heat index numbers getting well into the 100s again, low 90s for actual temperatures. And there'll be some good clusters of showers and storms once the heat breaks down later next week. And once we get into that first part of August, so this 2-week tracker is going to take you to about August 8th. And you're seeing right there once we get to about Wednesday, which would be right there, I would say about the 30th of August there. You see, excuse me, this takes you to August 5th, I should say. Right when we get to about August or July 30th and into the first few days of August, that's when we're going to start to see some of that cooler air work its way back in. So we just have to hang on for a little bit while longer. There will be some relief coming our way, but we are going to have to wait a little while for that to come in. Until then, yeah, just have to be smart about what we're doing outside, making sure we're taking the breaks in the shade and also pacing ourselves when it comes to doing work outside. Lots of weather going on, that is for sure. Let's go over a couple of our questions that we had this week for Ask Andrew. Let's start with an easy lift because the one we had this morning was quite a heavy lift and it's going to take quite an explanation here and then we'll get to your questions. So the one I had earlier this week was asking, why does the moon appear so much larger on the horizon this time of year than it does any other time of the year, especially in the winter? So let's break this down. During the summer months that we're in right now, the full moon, it never really gets far above the horizon. It's opposite of the sun. During the summer months, the sun has a very high angle in our sky. That's why it's so powerful, and that's why it's the warmest time of the year. The moon is opposite. The moon actually has the lowest angle during the summer months, and it has the highest angle during the winter months. So because of that low angle during the summer, it looks huge, really huge on the horizon. It also looks a little bit more colorful too, because during the summer months we get some more pollutants involved in this. It includes wildfire smoke. It can also include dust from Africa, believe it or not. That can travel all this way to the west and this far north. So it's an optical illusion is really what's going on here. Our eyes are playing tricks on us. And this has a certain name to it. And I'm going to give you an example of how this illusion works. So on your screen right now, you have two lines. They're both yellow. You see those there. You look at this screen. What line looks biggest? Which one is the longest? You're thinking to yourself, well, Andrew, obviously it's the one far away, the one at the top of the tracks there. Well, look at this. They're actually the same distance apart. They're the same length. This is an illusion that our eyes play on us, and it's called the Ponzo illusion. And it makes distant objects appear larger. Isn't that something? Yeah, you look at that and you swear to yourself that top line is way, way bigger than that bottom line. But no, they are the same distance. So thanks to Ponzo for discovering that optical illusion that plays tricks with our brain. Really cool question there about the moon. Our one today, it was a heavy lifter. And it involves a bit of an explanation here. So I had Tom from Milledgeville ask me, how does cloud seeding work? And is it possible to produce large amounts of rain? And he was specifically kind of tying this into what happened with the flood situation in Texas a few weeks ago, where there was a report of cloud seeding in the area just a few days before this event all unfolded and took place. It is a very, very heavy lift. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this in chunks here. So if you're not familiar with cloud seeding, yes, it does exist. Yes, it is a form of weather modification. So folks that do say, yes, weather modification exists are correct. Cloud seeding is a thing. There are companies, private companies that do cloud seeding. There's also government agencies that do cloud seeding as well. So how cloud seeding works is you have to have an existing cloud. You cannot create a cloud just by cloud seeding. You actually need a cloud that's already in the sky, already fully developed in order for this to work. So we're not creating clouds out of thin air or creating our own clouds. What we're doing is we are enhancing the clouds that already exist. Planes will fly into those clouds and they will fire with little rockets here, what we call silver iodide. And that is a compound that is very, very identical to an ice crystal or a droplet of water, nearly the same composition. And those are the crystals that you need to grow the cloud, to promote more raindrop development, more snowflake development. It essentially allows the cloud to maximize its potential when it comes to its expansiveness or its growth. So what we're not doing is we're not producing heavier precipitation. What we're doing is we're trying to produce more widespread precipitation, whether it's rain, whether it's snow, all of the above there. So remember, we're not adding to the heaviness of the rain or the snow. We're adding to the more widespread nature of the rain and the snow. Bottom line, those silver iodide molecules, they bond to the existing water droplets, the existing ice crystals in the cloud, and they enhance the snow and the rain-making process. They're generally just trying to get more widespread coverage of the rain. So something to keep in mind, silver iodide, according to all the research that I have read and the experts that I have talked to, once it's in the air, it does not linger very long. We're talking about a short time period of maybe 30 minutes to an hour or two at most, based on everything that I've read and everything that and everybody that I've talked to. So with that, it doesn't make much sense to really connect what happened with the cloud seeding days before and then what happened in Texas days after that, because after that case, the silver iodide would no longer be in the atmosphere. It would have been rained out. And that makes sense because, again, what we're doing is we're putting this in a cloud that already exists. That same cloud is not going to be hanging around much longer. If you think about a lifespan of a cloud, it's not very long. And even a thunderstorm, it's constantly recycling and recycling and recycling a cloud. It's not using the same cloud as when it first started. So there's still some research that needs to be done on this. But yes, weather modification is real in terms of what's going on with this process here with cloud seeding. It's definitely something that's been going on for quite a while. In fact, I think this has been researched all the way back to the 1940s. It's been used by governments for even kind of giving them an edge up in wars and things like that. It's quite a fascinating topic. I still think there's more long-term studies that need to be done with this. And I've said this multiple times that, messing with a natural process, even cloud seeding, if it may seem harmless, may have some unintended consequences, not necessarily what happened in Texas, of course, but it may have some unintended longer-term consequences that we may not know about because our window of study on this thing is still pretty short. You're probably talking about less than a century worth of study. So long-term effects, I think, still very low confidence on what that's going to do. But certainly we know the short-term consequences and the short-term effects of that. And that it likely did not lead to what happened in Texas based on everything that I've read. And there's a lot of scientific agreement on that too. Of course, I'll eat a plate of crow if that is ever proven wrong by someone else with some higher credentials and a whole lot more studies. But certainly that looks to be the case right now. We can't really point to cloud seeding being the case for what happened in Texas. But this is a real thing. Yes, it is weather modification. Hopefully that helps straighten out a little bit of that. Definitely, again, as I said earlier, a very heavy lift topic to get through. But it was a fantastic question, and I'm glad that it was something I was able to bring up. And actually, I enjoyed researching that, too. I looked through a whole bunch of scholarly articles and talked to a few people that are actually in that business, listened to a few interviews from folks that work in that industry. Fascinating stuff. Again, I'm not a big fan of it personally, but I think we still need some long-term data to see what the long-term impacts of that kind of weather modification could potentially be. But very interesting nonetheless, that's for sure. We are at 9:18 here, so we're going to grab some of your questions. Hopefully that kind of sparked a little bit of conversation here this morning. You guys always have some awesome questions, and kudos to you because I'm always able to pick some really good ones out of the audience here and use them for bigger Ask Andrew segments during Good Morning Quad Cities. So we'll dive right in here. I'm going to pull up the chat right now on our Facebook page, and also our digital team is also giving me some questions to help you out with as well. And those are also located in our chat. So here we go. We'll start off with Michelle Maxfield asking, the Farmer's Almanac, do you really believe that, or is it just kind of like guessing as her grandma always used to have one? So I am not a huge fan of the Farmer's Almanac at all. I think it's a more generalized picture based on some folklore, meteorology. Sometimes you can get lucky. Sometimes they get lucky and they get the forecast or their outlook kind of very similar to what actually happened in the previous winters. But I actually did a piece on this, and I think it's at our website. I'm doing a quick search right now just to see where I kind of put on the accuracy of the Farmer's Almanac. How accurate is it? And I'm going to pull it up right now here. So I put this on WQAD.com August of last year. And what I found, I'm kind of digging through the article right now, is the accuracy is about 42%. And that is for both the Farmer's Almanac and then there's another one. There's the Old Farmer's Almanac. Kind of the same thing, two different companies. The accuracy of those is about 42%, so less than half. So I don't put much weight into the Farmer's Almanac. Again, some years you can get lucky, some years not so lucky, but I don't think I would definitely put that in high confidence. That is for sure. We have another question here coming in from Riley, who has our joke of the day. I love this so much. Why don't meteorologists trust storms is the question. And the answer is because they make up everything, including yesterday's forecast. You know, some days you win some days you lose some. She's got some good jokes there for sure, though. I love that so much. Let's see what else we have this morning. We have from Randy. Now, this is an interesting question. Okay, so Randy says, last year a couple told me about donating to stop chemtrails from happening, to stop climate change that is happening or not happening, according to some. Everything that I researched about this is not true. Can you discuss this? So, chemtrails. This is a big topic on social media. Everything that I have read, everything that I have researched, everything that I know as a meteorologist, how physics work, how the atmosphere works, how chemistry works. We got to go through a ton of chemistry, by the way, just to give you some background on a meteorology degree. We don't just go to school and look at a cloud chart or a front chart or something like that. I had to go through so much physics and chemistry, it'd make your head spin. I had about as much physics and chemistry as what an electrical engineer had, a structural engineer, people that would send spaceships to the moon and back, to give you an idea of how heavy our science background is. So, you know, very confident in what I'm saying here. They're just not a thing, as far as we know. If anyone can show me evidence to prove in the contrary, other than an AI-generated image or some other misleading image, I'm all ears. I'm open to discussion. But we're talking about condensation trails on the rear end of a plane. And those are caused by, of course, you have a difference in temperature. You're taking some very cold air in the upper levels of the atmosphere at 30,000 feet. You're putting it into a hot engine. Of course, it's going to condense whatever moisture it's got in there, and it's going to come out of the back of the plane in the form of a cloud, or in this place, what we call a contrail. Some folks believe, and that's fine. I think people can have whatever belief they like. They certainly have a right to do that. There are folks that believe that the chemtrails are altering our weather and they're poisoning us and doing things like that. I'm just here to say I don't buy that. I'm giving you the science straight off the rails here to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So, yes, they are not real. Nothing you need to worry about in terms of that. Again, if somebody can prove me wrong with some stout, very strict scientific evidence and a very big, large pile of proof, I'll eat a plate of crow, but everything I know tells me, nope, those are not real. But you know what? Great question. I'll never discount that. Let's see. Oh, I think this is from, I bet it's from Billy, I bet. Looks like a little bit more than a quarter of an inch of rain this morning from the thunderstorms that moved through. The question is, a few weeks ago, I'd asked about Hurricane Ivan, and it led me to this question. How much did friction and terrain play in a role in the April 27th, 2011 super outbreak? Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Great question, Billy. So that absolutely played a role in what happened there, because when we talk about friction, we're talking about the wind, of course, interacting with land. That can absolutely enhance spin, especially when you go into a terraneous area in the southeast, when we're talking about mountains, we're talking about dips and rises and valleys, things like that. That can absolutely have a role in what happened specifically with that storm there, April 27th, that he's referencing in 2011. Multiple tornadoes absolutely can have a factor in that. So great question. Tyler says, while we go through this significant heat, is there anything that can be used inside or outside of cars to slightly keep them from getting super hot inside? The answer is not really. I read a study when I was researching some information about, kids in hot cars, dogs in hot cars. Does cracking the window open or leaving the window down do anything to the temperature at all? Not really. I think when I was reading the study, I remember 5 minutes was the delay in the temperature. When you crack the windows open, it takes 5 minutes longer for the temperature in the car to heat up to the temperature that it's going to reach its maximum at versus if you keep them closed. So all you're doing when you roll down your windows or you even just leave them open a crack is you're just delaying the time it takes to reach that super, super hot temperature inside the car. You're only buying yourself a few minutes. Now, I think there's a couple products out there on the market that try and move some air through maybe a vented window. That will certainly help a little bit, but especially if you have a darker colored car, I'd say that's pretty fruitless and a waste of money. If you have a white colored car, you might have some better luck. We talk about albedo all the time, so keep that in mind. That plays a big, big part. From Paul, how many 90-degree days have we had this year and how many feels like 90 plus have we had? I'm curious why in years past when the dew points were in the mid-60s, the weather folks would say it's oppressive. Now the verbiage has been more when the dew point is in the mid-70s, it's so oppressive. So 90s this year were actually kind of on par with where we should be. I showed this a little bit yesterday. We're behind during the month of July. There you see it there. 3 days is all we've had. And usually we see 9, so a little catching up to do there. But we had a surplus last month in June where we saw 8 90-degree days, and we usually see 5. So when you kind of evens itself out there, we've had 12 days of 90 so far in 2025. Usually each year we see 23 days on average. So we're not doing too bad. You know, we've got more 90s to come this week, next week, and I'm sure we'll have more in August and probably a handful more in September. The thing with the heat index, the feels like temperature, we really don't have a solid database for that. We can track dew point. I got a dew point database that goes all the way back to the early 1900s, but the heat index was a relatively new thing only a few decades ago. So we don't have a ton of data to show, is the heat index getting higher? Is it getting lower? Don't forget we adjusted the heat index formula too not that long ago. So I really don't have any reliable data to say that. I will say, though, it's kind of personal preference, though, when it comes to are the mid-60s oppressive? Is 70 oppressive? I would say for myself personally, I think for most folks that I speak to, mid-60s and higher are oppressive. But some of the verbiage that I use, like miserable, I use that for 70 plus. So I think that's just a matter of personal preference in terms of what you want to call it and how you want to make that scale work there. We have got another question coming in from Michelle asking, the storms that are coming in, is there going to be a cap that we're going to be dealing with? I don't believe so. Not for the storms tomorrow. I don't foresee us running into an issue with the cap, mainly because, and I'll show you why here. We'll go to the Run of Future Track really quickly here in the last couple of minutes, see if this updated to the newer run, which it should have, and yes, it did. So notice what comes in here on Thursday. We're going to have a couple of scattered showers in the morning, but we're also going to have some clouds. So we're not talking about the sun blasting us all morning long. We're going to have some, what we call blocking of the sun there with the clouds. Once we get into the afternoon, because we're not going to be experiencing all that full sunshine, we're not going to be having a cap. There'll be some colder air coming in with this cold front. And what it's going to do is it's going to spark those scattered storms. And there you see the newest model run, now kind of giving us a little bit of a longer window for storms. Again, this just came in a few moments ago. It still has some scattered storm activity here in the afternoon and early evening, but it also has some new storm development pushing in from the southwest as we go into later Thursday night. So I don't believe the cap is going to be an issue on Thursday. I do believe we have a decent chance at seeing at least some good coverage of some showers and some thunderstorms. Whether we see widespread severe weather or not, that's not looking likely right now. It's only a 1 out of 5 on the threat track scale as we go into tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. So we're going to continue to watch that. If it does go up or if something major changes, we'll certainly be the first to let you know, both right here on the app and, of course, on air and at WQAD.com. But right now, I'm just not too excited about severe weather threats. I would say, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, me needing to come in and help out James tomorrow evening, I'd say we're probably at like a 2.5. I'll likely be able to stay home and probably get that nap in and get to bed on time. So that's how I'm feeling right now about storms tomorrow. Not looking too exciting for any big time severe weather, and that's okay. We've got the final 20 seconds, and I want to use that to thank all of you for joining me here this morning. It's been great to have your company, and as always, you guys have some awesome questions for me to answer. Feel free to drop a line either on my Facebook page. You can find my contact info at WQAD.com. Also at WQ80.com, you can submit your question, which I'll take time to answer next time, coming up on Ask Andrew Live. I'll see you a little bit later this morning for GMQC at 11. Have a great Wednesday and stay cool, Quad Cities.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 8 Plus app everywhere you stream.